Would you like a lolly?
Hold on.
I feel more comfortable as a
Just a sec, bro.
How's this look? Because I can't see it.
You look awesome, man.
Cool. It's like I'm kind of looking over the glasses to see the screen.
So, dude, I was dressed up like this tonight when the kids were coming around knocking on the doors, trick or treating.
Right.
I had black shades on underneath the mask, so you couldn't see my eyes or anything. And we shut all the curtains in the house and just kept everything dark and gloomy. And I hid behind the door, and when they knocked, I just slowly opened the door, so they didn't know that there was anyone there. So the door opens, and then I slowly peep around. Hello. It's like 5-year-old kids shitting themselves.
You know, it reminds me of like a kind of a gladiator mask.
Yeah.
If it was gold, it's got that like kind of lifeless, expressionless face.
But anyway, these kids were the bravest one was like a 5-year-old little Filipino girl. Her mum was at the end of the drive just looking up in horror, and she was just like, "Hi, trick or treat. Would you like a lolly?" And so she's shaking. She grabs one lolly out of the container and drops it on the ground. So she's bending down to pick up the lolly, picks it up and fumbles it into her bag. And I said, "Would you like some more?" So she took a handful and went off her merry way. And then probably half an hour later, a trio turned up of kids about the same age, and their mother was dressed up as a nun at the end of the drive. And she gave me a filthy look when I opened the doors. But the kids seem to enjoy it, so...
That's the funnest part about Halloween, is scaring kids.
Yeah, man, it's totally fun. But, you know, it's a new thing here in New Zealand. Like, when I was growing up as a kid, you know, we knew Halloween existed in the States, but it kind of wasn't here. It wasn't the New Zealand thing.
Right.
Yeah, but, dude, I might take this off. I'm like, cooking in it, man. Are you cooking in that? You look awesome, dude. What's the story with that?
It's a wig backwards.
Can you actually see anything in there?
Can't see anything. It's not hot. It tickles my eyes.
Yeah, do you like my rape dungeon outfit, man? Do you like my chains and shit? Yeah, they're real chains.
They're plastic, huh?
Oh yeah. Did I say they're real? Yeah, I meant they're plastic.
They're still useful though.
Yeah. Me and Kim later on.
So when was the first time you ever celebrated Halloween?
Well, kind of. Hold on, man. I'm gonna ditch this. That's better, man. Halloween for us sort of kicked off in the last few years. You know, Ava's well, she's almost 16 in December, and Maya's 12, so 13 in December, and so that gets to that point where it's, you know, a little bit too young for them now. Though my youngest is out trick or treating with her friends tonight, and Ava's just hanging around the house with her friend here. But sort of about 2 years ago, things started getting more into the swing of things here in New Zealand. Like we get bombarded with trick or treaters and have the whole stocks with the lollies and all the treats and stuff each year. And like tonight's no different. We got all the stores at the front door. So when that knocking comes along, we're there to respond.
You guys got a bowl of candy sitting there next to the door?
Yeah, Kim always goes and gets a big stash from the local supermarket and makes sure it's well supplied. But no, it's good. It's good. The kids enjoy it. The neighbourhood kids love it. So it's a break from the norm. I mean, we have different celebrations here in New Zealand as well. I know you guys probably don't celebrate Guy Fawkes.
I actually kind of just heard about it a few years ago.
Like the gunpowder plot at the
Right.
British Parliament building. Yeah, that's something that we've celebrated all our lives. It's sort of our big annual fireworks display. And it's cool. That's coming up in a couple of weeks, as a matter of fact.
Cool. So that's coming up for you guys.
Yeah, so Guy Fawkes is coming up. But other than that, all the rest of the holidays we do. Obviously, you guys have the 4th of July being your big fireworks occasion. But the rest of the holidays are pretty much stock standard, apart from your nation specific ones.
You guys
yeah.
have Edmund Hillary Day,
No, we don't have Edmund Hillary Day.
where everybody climbs to the top of the closest mountain to their house.
Yeah, nah, we don't have that. For us, he did a lot for the country, did a lot for obviously Nepal. But no, we don't. Yeah, stock standard, Christmas, Easter, Guy Fawkes, obviously the national holidays, but that's it for us, man. Are you like 100 degrees under that week, dude?
It's actually kind of keeping me warm. The basement's pretty chilly today.
Is it?
It's probably because of all the spooky spirits that are.
Oh, of course.
You know, when they come around, it's supposed to make the room colder.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going on.
Is that what's kept Mr. Qualtieri away tonight? He was meant to be joining us, but he's been called away last minute.
Well, we started to record this last night.
Yeah, well, I haven't mentioned that, mate.
We got possessed.
Yeah, we had a vidcast possession last night, which the three of us were here, all set up, ready to go, and something reached out from the spirit world and just grabbed us by the balls and said, "Not tonight."
The power of Skype compels you.
So,
like, Halloween for me, dude, was huge.
yeah. So, can you remember your sort of first years of Halloween, dude?
I remember probably when it all started. My mom was making little clown costumes for me and my brother. My brother's a little bit older than me, but we were always kind of the same. We were the same thing every year. So my mom would make 2 costumes that were pretty much the same. And we were like clowns one year. I think I was a hobo one year, and then probably around the time I became right around the time I turned 10 years old, I saw Ernest Scared Stupid. You ever seen that?
No, I haven't seen it.
You know who Ernest is? His name was Ernest P. Worrell.
Yeah.
Played by an actor named Jim Varney. Who he actually talked the Slinky Dog on Toy Story. And he passed away from smoking cigarettes. Anyway, he made
as you do.
Ernest Goes to Camp, Ernest Scared Stupid, Ernest Goes to Jail. And anyway, the Ernest Scared Stupid was this troll that came up from the mythological...
The underworld.
Yeah, the underworld. I don't remember the plot, but it just grabbed me, did this little troll costume. It was just it was a guy in a rubber mask, probably like a small person in a rubber mask. And it was badass, and I thought, dude, that's what I want to be for Halloween. And my mom took me to Kmart, and we looked through the wigs and rubber masks, and I picked the ugliest, closest to the troll that I could find, and wore that to school. And it was the first time I was ever a monster, and I got it. Like, man, this is cool. I'm scary. These kids are afraid of me.
You got the itch.
Yeah, man.
That power awesome. Was coursing through your veins, and it became like a rabid addiction.
Yeah, because it was just a school thing, really. Then we were allowed to. I went to a public school, and we were totally allowed to wear our costumes to school.
Oh man!
So it became a really exciting thing to see, like, well, who's gonna come as what next year. But I never really did the trick or treating thing, like I've mentioned before. I was kind of from a conservative household, and Halloween wasn't really the most
popular holiday, not the most popular sort of celebratory event in your household.
It's
as
Christmas
a young white Christian household.
Exactly.
Yep.
So we would go to like church harvest festivals, is what they called them. And they were pretty cool. You just get in your costume and you'll get a bunch of candy. It's the same thing everybody else was doing, but it was at church, so it was better.
Yeah.
And then years later, trick or treating became more of like a running around and causing trouble with your friends, skateboarding up and down streets. And we would go to the neighborhoods that had the nicest houses. And
yeah, of course, because they have the best lollies.
Yeah, they get full-size candy bars.
Yeah, man. Not like 1 or 2 lollies at a time. No, none of that nonsense.
But it was also like just like from Ernest, it was like Halloween movies, spooky movies that always kept that going for me.
Yeah, is it something you guys still do to this day?
Yeah,
Because like right now it's what? It's Friday night at your place, right?
yeah. Tonight is kind of Halloween Eve.
Yeah, so tomorrow's your big Halloween event. Are you doing anything special for it tomorrow?
No,
No, just chilling out locally?
just chilling out. Yep.
Nice. And the young fella's obviously a little too young so far.
Actually, we're gonna take him trick or treating tomorrow. He's got a little gorilla suit.
Oh, sweet.
We're not gonna make a big deal about it. We're just gonna go, put him in his little suit and take some pictures and go get some candy.
Yeah. How old's Jamie?
He's 16 months.
16 months. Nice. Man, he'll look all cute as hell in that little gorilla suit.
Yeah, he will. He's gonna look awesome.
Get some pics up, man. Get some pics up on Facebook. So is this going to be something you guys continue to sort of celebrate?
Oh yeah,
Years to come?
we always say next year Halloween's gonna be bigger. We're
Yeah.
gonna do something better for Halloween. We usually have until he was born. We've had some pretty crazy years, and when we were living on the coast, we had some wild Halloween parties. We'd go downtown, and there was always fights and stuff. People were in costumes, and it just makes everybody. When you're in a costume, I don't know, it just makes you act like a weirdo. Weird in a costume.
Some of us don't need costumes to act like a weirdo, Jonathan. You know that, man. Hey, tell me, are you guys big in the horror flicks, the whole horror movie thing? Do you get right into all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that same thing. I'm into more old horror movies.
Oh yeah, the old school, the classics.
It takes a lot these days to make me get scared from a movie, and it's usually it's not a ghost story that's going to spook me out. There's very few ghost stories that give me the chills, but possession movies, like demon possession, that's spooky stuff, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, dude, I was traumatized as a kid. I've never been a big fan of horror movies, and neither has my father. My father hated them, but my mother has an addiction to horror films. Has had one since I've ever been alive, and it continues to have one to this day. And back growing up as a kid, they used to have what they called the Sunday horrors on here in New Zealand. It was always like 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday, just before the television network closed down for the day. They had the Sunday horrors, obviously on Sunday, and Mum would tape them.
Okay.
Now, my father, as a marine engineer in that field, used to work the long hours and work the weekends and all that sort of stuff. So I have fond memory. Well, not fond. Actually, terrifying memories of my Sundays as a child with Mum. We'd be in the lounge room. She'd be like doing motherly things, ironing, the washing, that sort of stuff. While she'd be playing these movies that she'd recorded, the week before. And I must have been all of like 5 or 6 years old. And naturally, I've always loved films and movies and stuff. So even as a kid, always loved that sort of stuff. But it's like Mum would pull us in while she was doing this work, and come watch this movie with me. And I tell you, man, some of the stuff we saw was terrifying. It was those years with Mum while she's ironing the washing, watching the Sunday horrors like on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Right.
And I was learning about The Shining, or Pet Sematary, Carrie. Later on was It. Just scared the living shit out of me, man. The Omen series, Damien the Omen, that terrified me. The Exorcist. Now that was a hard grind for like a 6 or 7 year old. The Exorcist, man, it still freaks me out to this day.
Yeah, I didn't see that until I was probably 14 or 15.
Dude, for me to this day, it's still one of the most disturbing films I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
Especially, I grew up a Catholic, and so we've always had that sort of connection with the priesthood and all the stories of exorcisms and the whole sort of Catholic faith was very much alive and well. My grandmother was a nun, a Catholic nun during World War II in Holland. That wasn't until she met my grandfather, obviously, but so they've always been, growing up, I remember going up to see my grandmother, and there'd be priests in the house because, she had the connections with the faith, the men of the cloth, and they'd come for afternoon tea and stuff. And it was a different kind of childhood for me, going up and visiting my grandmother instead of seeing, your average rallies hanging out and having a feed. You'd have, the local priests, and they'd be up there talking all sorts of stuff. But I won't get into that because, I'm not a religious man. That's just the way I grew up. I mean, I have my
think
faith, but I don't belong to any denomination. I don't follow or go to church or anything like that. So,
I think it makes Halloween funner if you believe in that kind of stuff.
what's that, mate?
I think it actually kind of would make Halloween more fun.
Yeah. Well, mate, I definitely have my belief system. There's some things I've seen over the years through the context of certain jobs I've done that have really sort of pushed the question home for me in a lot of ways. But just to cap off where I was going with that, Mum and Her Sunday Horrors was the earliest introduction, and I think that shaped me in a lot of ways.
Do you remember any specific scene in a specific movie that stuck with you?
Yeah, totally. I think it was the first Omen movie.
Before you go on, I'll tell you one thing. Mine and Ashley's very first date was to go see the Omen remake.
Oh, it's not bad.
It's not bad, but you know what? There's some part of the movie they say Bugenhagen. The word Bugenhagen is in the movie, and we're in the theater on our first date, and I'm cracking up at this stupid. They keep saying it, and I'm laughing like a fucking maniac, and I'm like trying to hold it together, like I'm cool. I think that's what made her like me. I was just crying. I couldn't stop laughing.
So Bugenhagen is the name of a location. Sounds like the name of some German.
It's part of I think it's the name of the demon that possesses the little boy.
Oh,
I don't know. Go ahead though.
Okay. No, well, there's a part in it where it's like
right?
it's like Damien's family's homestead, because it's obviously a very affluent family, and all these people, family members or friends, had got together for some sort of gala or carnival. I can't remember exactly what it was, in the backyard.
Yep.
And it was like the caregiver, a lady caregiver of Damien's, had sort of climbed up onto the big barn, family barn, and she had a noose around her neck, and it was tied down to a pole coming out and stuff, and she cries out, "Damien, I'm doing this for you!" And everyone sort of looks up, and everyone's like, and she jumps off this barn and cracks her neck, and that for me, I mean.
I remember that.
Thanks, Mum. That one stuck with me. There's also parts that... Eh?
Were you watching it with her or by yourself?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And even, be it a Sunday afternoon or stuff, it still scared the living shit out of me. So, yeah, Mum, you have a lot to answer for. But The Omen, The Exorcist, that one shook me right through, man. There's some parts in that.
The movie scene ever freaked me out.
Yeah,
most of the time as a kid, I was with somebody else when I was watching.
Yeah.
And when there's other people around, it's not as bad. You can cope with the fear a little better. But one night I watched, and I was probably 15 years old, and I watched the first Friday the 13th.
Oh, yep, seen a lot too.
I mean, it's pretty corny through the whole thing.
It is, but the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, another classic series that I grew up with, thanks Mum, they're sort of the same, they fit into that same sort of slightly cornier, sort of American summer camp, teenage, sex party, become horror story film series.
And it was the first time it was the first time I had a VCR in my bedroom. And I'm watching the first one, and it's the very end of the movie, and it was actually Jason's mom in the first one that was killing everybody. It wasn't Jason.
Yeah.
And I don't even think the hockey mask came around till the third one. Anyway, it's the morning, the morning after all the murders happen, and the girl's in the boat, and she wakes up and lifts her head up, and there's cops on the shore of the river, and she waves at the cops. And they wave back, and she's starting to maybe row towards shore, and then Jason jumps out of the water. It's like this decomposed,
rotting corpse.
Yeah, I was expecting it, and I was by myself when it happened. I was, what the fuck? I remember looking around the room like, oh shit.
Yep.
And that was the first time I was ever terrified.
I smell fish. What the hell's that smell? Yeah. That scared the shit out of me too, man. The Friday the 13th series scared the shit out of me. Now you're sort of digging up memories that I've sort of subdued, mate. 'Cause some of these things I'm sure my brain switched off to at that age. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that scared the shit out of me.
Yes.
Deliverance.
First time you see Leatherface.
Yeah.
The first shot, he just hits the guy over the head.
Yeah.
And he slams that metal door shut. Dude, it makes my heart race.
Other classics like Deliverance with the Hillbillies. Even though that wasn't sort of horror per se. It had that whole element to it. But I really found the Stephen King stuff really
Oh yeah.
hit home with me at a young age. The Shining scared the crap out of me. Yeah, it's crazy. You know how I was telling you about my stint mining in the Flysnaps we did in Laverton in the Western Australian desert? It's kind of bizarre how that all happened, but Stephen King was doing a world tour, and of all places on this planet to turn up on his world tour, Laverton was one of them.
Little tiny town.
Yeah, this little tiny Aboriginal town in the middle of the arse end of nowhere, and he turns up to this museum to give a talk to the local population, all of maybe 100 tops. Crazy. But yeah, so
Did you get to go?
I couldn't escape. No, I was working.
You were out there, Mike. You were out there the banjo.
Yeah, out there playing the banjo, man. But yeah, sorry to deviate that. But yeah, so even though we missed out on that sort of the introduction of Halloween to New Zealand culture growing up. We're a bit too young for it. The sort of whole horror, scary movie theme and appreciation for the macabre, the sort of supernatural, has always been thick and firm. I mean, that's been with me growing up. I mean, I'm not a fan of horror movies, so Kim will watch the occasional one, and then I'm always involuntarily roped into it. With The Conjuring was one that sort of stuck with me recently. Again, it's sort of the plain, bland, sort of generic horror splatter films don't bother me at all. But it's when they throw in a bit of a religious twist to it, or a bit of especially from again the Catholic priesthood exorcist perspective, it sort of gives a bit more of a realistic sort of slant on things. And I find those ones sort of creep me out a bit more than the average splatterfest.
I like your pronunciation of The Conjuring.
Yeah, The Conjuring. Have you seen that?
Yeah, we just say it, The Conjuring.
Oh, The Conjuring? Oh, no, that's The Conjuring.
Ah.
Yeah, that one, yeah. Anything that sort of delves into sort of possession and that sort of stuff, I try and steer clear of. But then again, I have a morbid fascination with American history, and obviously the Salem witch trials stands very prominently in my mind. It's a fascinating period. It actually led off to my own amateur historic studies, and delving into the history of the Salem witch trials is a fascinating period to delve into, and realizing the whole sort of connection with the old Amish community sort of dwelled in that area in that time frame, and how it came around once the Amish community sort of opened the doors to the greater world, to the greater evil, perhaps. I don't know, but I won't bore you with the details there. So it's just a very fascinating period for me. Obviously the whole spin on the American fall, the whole autumn, the harvest, and all its roots in pagan rituals and things. It has a real interesting slant.
Yeah, it's interesting unless you were a chick back in those days who liked to have potpourri in her front room. You ever found yourself in the middle of a horror story?
Unfortunately, yes. A number of them, yeah.
Like ghost stories, or
well,
because let me just say that if I were to tell a ghost story, I'd be telling somebody else's ghost story. Because I grew up in the middle of cornfields, and we used to run in those cornfields in the middle of the night. We'd get all drunk and stoned and go running through those fields.
You were the children of the corn?
Dude, if there were children out in those cornfields, if there were ghosts, man, they would have got us. And we used to find old farmers' houses that were abandoned. Sometimes they were large houses, sometimes they were shacks.
Yeah.
This is out in, Southern California in the agricultural area. There's a lot of places to run around in the middle of the night. If there was a ghost, I think we would have met one at one point, If they, they hang around. I never saw anything that I could say was spooky, but I don't know. I found it in a December 30th of 2002, which was like almost 13 years ago. It was a Monday. I came back to work I was working at a mobile home. It was like a retirement village for senior people, and they were all mobile homes, like trailer homes. and my job was to fix leaky faucets and broken windows and shit like that. And we had a few days off for Christmas. It was the 30th. I remember we came back, it was a Monday, and it was super foggy outside, and we go up to this guy's house, and he's on the list for a leaky bathtub. And so we knock on his door, he doesn't answer. He's kind of an old guy, and the park kind of protocol for that kind of thing is go get the master key. We kept master keys for a lot of the really old people. So my boss runs back to the office and runs back as quick as he can, unlocks the door. I walked in first, and he was behind me, and the smell hit me like, right as we walked in, it smelled like, oh, it was terrible. It was, he'd been in there for quite a few days. He'd actually had a heart attack in his bathroom and fell into the hallway.
Wow. Yeah.
It was really warm because he left the heater on, so the whole inside of the
stunk it up nasty.
It stunk. It was real humid in there, and the top of his back was like lime green or pale green.
Yeah.
But and he was on his stomach, and the closer that he got closer to the ground, his skin was black.
Yeah, all the blood had sort of drained to the
Right.
gravity takes its toll, and
there were bugs everywhere, and he had a little dog, like a little Yorkie, running around. And later on, when we called the police and the coroner came over, the coroner told us, he's like, "Man, you guys had about 48 hours before this dog started eating the guy, because the dog had like an automatic food bowl that was feeding the dog."
and it's going to run out.
Yeah, and it was about to run out.
Oh man.
But the guy was actually a registered sex offender and had no family, and I guess he had some family, but they said, yeah, let the state take care of it.
Well, man, the world's a better place, I imagine.
But dude, it shook me to the core.
Yeah, it
The
totally
smell,
does.
The smell never, like I can still smell it if I think about it hard enough.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, and it's like a spooky thing, like he haunts me, but I don't believe in shit like that.
Yeah.
I still remember it very clearly.
I don't deny any of that stuff. I'll keep a very open mind, to be honest. Now, New Zealand is a relatively new country in the grand scope of things. I mean, we don't have the massive history of many other parts of the world.
Right.
But I use our Maori population. That's our native, our indigenous population here in New Zealand. They're a fierce warrior people. The tangata whenua, the people of the land. They have a culture that's very rich, steeped into all sorts of things that people would sort of say were supernatural. You know, they have a very firm connection and belief in the spiritual world, much akin to the Red Indians, the native Indians of your land.
Right.
And yet there are places all over New Zealand, sacred burial sites, the pa sites, and a pa being the Maori word for fortress, which is their old fortresses that they used to live in. And there's a lot of it. There's a massive spiritual connection with the land, the Maori, and their culture and beliefs here that you never really want to delve too deep into. My wife's grandfather was a very dear person to me. He was a World War II veteran, fought in the deserts in El Alamein and Crete, and been all over the show. He was wounded in war. But they used to live up in the Hokianga, which is a place sort of 3 or 4 hours north of here, out on the west coast. And it was a very strong Maori community there. And they were farmers. Being a Croatian family, they came over and established farms and sort of lived and coexisted up there quite successfully for many years until they moved into the largest inhabited areas. But I remember him telling us a story while he was alive about they'd been out on the farm working as they did one day, him and his brothers, and they were making the trek home to dinner. It was on dusk and things were getting dark, and her grandfather or the brother pointed out this guy sitting out in the middle of the field, and he was warming himself around a fire. Actually, it was Kim's grandfather who saw that, because he's like, "Oh, look, there's a guy out in the field. We should invite him in, get him in, keep him warm, give him some supper." And a friend of the brothers who was with him at the time turned and said, "No, leave him, leave him as he is. Don't go near him." So okay, fair enough. So they didn't think any more of it. Went home, had the dinner. The next day they wake up, get ready for a day at work. It's like, "Oh, let's go down and see if that guy's still there. We'll get him up for some breakfast." They went down into the field where he was sitting around the fire, and there was no sign of him, no sign of the fire. The grass was all still completely untouched and absolutely no trace of the guy at all. But there's lots of little stories like that up in those sort of far off reaching places of New Zealand. I just remember him telling that story a number of times, and it was one that always sort of sat at home with me. Now, there's some haunted places here in New Zealand. They've got this thing they call spookers, where you go to this asylum out in South Auckland. I forgot the name of the place. Recognised as one of the most haunted buildings in New Zealand. And this group of guys are there for thrills. You go pay some money and they'll basically take you on a tour through the asylum at night and scare the living shit out of you. But there's places in this particular asylum that you're not allowed to go. They're forbidden.
Right.
Because some pretty horrible things happen here, and the whole sort of mental health industry in New Zealand was pretty barbaric up until only recently. And who knows what sort of things went on behind asylum doors. But I do know that they're forbidden from using or even going into certain areas of this particular asylum, and I hate to sort of dig any deeper. But I mean, I guess my mind's a little more open to things like this, Jonathan, thanks to my time in the police.
Right.
I've always had a firm understanding and respect, and a sort of drive to stay away from these things that are sort of unexplained, or I just believe that there's certain things you shouldn't get involved in or delve into, or don't look too deeply. But my time in the police was a real eye-opener. It was the first time I'd sort of ever seriously seen death up close, and dealt with death on a almost daily basis. There are a few events in my time in the police that sort of stick with me to this day, and they'll never leave. Now, I'm not going to mention names or locations or anything like that out of respect, but I can sort of, they have this saying here in New Zealand with regards to the police force, and it's like, have better work stories, and it's like a byline they use on all the ads. But sometimes the stories just aren't better, mate, and some you don't really want to know. But I remember, in my first week on the job, we had a 1S, a sudden death. That was a code for a sudden death, and it was a guy who hung himself in his backyard shed after having a domestic incident with his wife the night before. And that was the first time I'd ever seen a suicide. And we bowled up to this place in the afternoon. It was a weekend afternoon, and they'd had this domestic, and he'd put his fist through the window, and everything blew up, and he stormed out of the house. And the wife thought that he'd gone down the road to chill out with his brother, get his sort of shit wired straight, and he would come back tomorrow, sort of thing. But it was his kids that found him hanging in the backyard shed the next morning. And I remember the oldest one of them must have been all of 5 or 6 years old. And I thought, the first thing we did when we got there was get the kids out of the scene. Those sort of memories would stick with them for the rest of their lives. So remove the kids, remove the wife. And I remember cutting this guy down. Now, my time at police college, I had my 21st birthday. And as a gift from my section, they'd given me this expensive Leatherman tool. It was all beautifully engraved. I still got it. It's right here on my shelf. And that was the only sort of sharp edge I had. And I was cutting this guy down off his rope. Now, the first thing that hit me when I walked into that shed was the smell. Now, during my time in the ambulance service, I dealt with death from a different angle. I had a guy die in my arms doing CPR in the back of a ambulance. I've been to a lot of natural cause deaths and things like that, but never a suicide as far as I recall. But this one had the smell, and I call it the smell of death, because that smell to this day is on my Leatherman tool, and I've never used it since. I use it to cut down that guy, and it just smelt. And I smell it when I open it. I don't know if it's a psychological thing or if it's actually a physical thing, because other people have smelled it. Like, I've given it to Kim, and she can't smell anything different. Just it smells like steel and leather.
Right.
But to me, it smells like he smelled when I went into that shed, and I just think, okay, there's a psychological connect there, and I don't know, I just can't bring myself to use it again, which is a shame because it's a beautiful tool. So yeah. But I just remember that was like my first hardcore exposure into to sort of being confronted with death from a non-natural perspective.
the spooky feeling.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever encountered something like that?
Oh, just the guy that I found, the dead man. That
but
I found.
no suicides and...
No, nothing like that.
Yeah. No, there's a pretty serious suicide rate here in this country. They're trying to address it, but you know, good luck to them. It's not a good way to go, but you know, people have their reasons, and it happens. But yeah, other times in the police, I mean, as some of my first serious road accidents attended, went to many, and they used to always sort of knock you on the noodle and make you think, well, hey, yeah, they just bring reality back into play, and you realise how finite this whole thing is, and how thin that line is. And, you know, you think you're 10'4" and bulletproof, but you're really not. We're just flesh and bone, and it can be taken away, extinguished just like that. But my first serious road accident I went to was on the Southern Motorway, State Highway 1, South Auckland. It was a motorcycle versus milk tanker, and that was probably about 3 or 4 weeks into my time in the police. And it was a gang member on a motorcycle, obviously doing maybe a cannabis run or something, going up the main highway, middle of the afternoon, sunny day, and traffic was a little hard. It was a little heavy at this particular time, and what he had done, it was at this particular junction, it was a three lane highway, and there were cars spread right throughout. The milk tanker was in the middle, and there were 2 cars on each flank. And the bike came up behind the milk tanker, saw a gap in between the car on the left and the tanker, sort of fanged it on his motorcycle, big Harley, went up. The rear tanker swayed. You know, it was a big two tanker truck, swayed. He clipped it on his motorcycle and he just went straight under. Got pushed forward, you know, sort of flung forward, and then went under both and just got caught and dragged for about 300 meters.
Oh shit!
His motorcycle was just absolutely decimated, and when we sort of picked up the bits, he was basically only held together by his leathers, and it was like a leather bladder full of soup, which was once a human being. And I remember, you know, Mad Max 1. I don't know if you've ever seen the Mad Max movies.
Yeah.
But at the end of the first one, the end of the latest one's the bomb. But the end of the first one has a scene in it which always reminds me of the look on this guy's face when he took his helmet off. It had, I think his name was Toe Cutter, the main bad guy, and he went up against a truck head first. And the last scene that I remember, his eyeballs actually bulge out of his skull. And that's what this guy's eyes were like. You know, his eyes
really
actually bulged out of his skull. And to me, that sort of said that the terror that would have been going through that guy's mind in that split second he was still alive, when he realised, oh shit, I'm in trouble. Just, you know, yeah, gang member, into bad stuff, but still not a nice way to go for anyone. You wouldn't wish it on anyone.
Yeah.
So we had some real grim aspects of the job. That's just 2. I mean, mate, we're dealing with this stuff, if not daily, weekly. In Auckland, obviously, the police here are so understaffed in Auckland and so overstretched that even though you have your own particular little area, and mine was Otara, we find ourselves going into other territories on night shifts and things like that. There's always meant to be at least 2 cops in a night shift patrol, but many times I found myself on a night shift in Otara by myself in the car, and there may be a cop over the next territory in Howick, but you know, there's sometimes when you were just by yourself and having to deal with anything that came your way. Which brings me on to some of the lighter stories of my time in the police. Maybe not lighter, but I can sort of look back on them with a bit more humour than other ones. And your story about this guy that you found sort of rings the bells there. This was on a night shift, and the one-up cop in Howick teamed up with me. I remember he's a tall Maori guy, real nice guy. We sort of left his car at the Howick station, and we jumped in mine, and we patrolled both territories this particular night shift. And it was about 10 o'clock at night, and we get this call from comms coming up and saying, oh look, XYZ from this address hasn't been seen for the last sort of 3 or 4 days. The neighbours have expressed concern. Can you go check it out? And we bowl down to this place called, I think it was Half Moon Bay, at 10 o'clock at night, and it's pitch black, it's winter, and there's a big house, this big house, and there's a bit of forestry around it, so it was sort of in the shadow of this forestry, and a big lovely house. And I thought, well, okay, here's this single woman living here, you know, a whole myriad of possibilities goes through your head when you're bowling up to a place like this in the sort of dead of night. And we both get out of the car, and you know, flashlights on, go up to the house, check the doors are locked, and yeah, doors are locked. Notice that all the curtains are open, which is odd. You know, it's sort of alarm bells start ringing. Walk around the back, and there's this huge fence that sort of fences off the backyard, so there's no entry into this fence that I could find in the dark. So we're thinking, okay, knocked on a door, looked through the window, shine the lights, nothing really untoward to see other than the odd fact that the curtains were all open at this time of night and stuff. So we're about to leave, and I don't know if it'd been background traffic noise or something, but out of my ear I hear music playing from inside the house. I'm thinking, okay, that's causing a little bit, you know, more cause for alarm. So I put my ear up against the window, and sure enough, there's a radio playing inside, and it's some old classical style music. Maybe the classical channel, concert radio, this channel we have here in New Zealand. And you know, at that point, the hairs sort of stand up on the back of my neck, and I'm not feeling so sure about the situation. So it's like, okay, well, we're gonna have to go over this fence and sort of check out what's in the back. And I remember climbing over this fence, which must be only 2 meters tall, kind of this big solid wooden fence, and tripping, falling over the back and landing in the rose gardens, because I remember having bloody rose thorns and crap all through my uniform. So I'm not too happy. I've dropped my torch, I'm in the pitch black in this backyard, and I'm covered in rose spikes. I get my shit together, my partner jumps over the fence, and we're in this big place. We start probing the backyard. And sure, there's all the windows, all the curtains are still open. We walk around the back of this deck, go up a flight of stairs to a Ranchleiter. And the minute I saw that Ranchleiter, I'm just starting to think to myself, please be locked. I remember telling myself, thinking this in my head, please be locked, please be locked, please be locked, please be locked. I go up and I grab it, and sure enough, it opens. And the music gets louder, as it does when you open the Ranchleiter, and I'm thinking, fuck. So lights on, you know, I had the torch going into the house, calling out, no answer, and I'm about 2 meters in the house, and I'm moving forward, and something grabs me by the ankle. I shit myself, I drop my torch, I slide over, ass over backwards, and what I suspected was a pool of water or something. I yell for help. My partner scuttled out the back over that fence, and was running to the car to get on the radio and call for backup, because he doesn't know what the hell's going on in the house. I'm shitting myself, and I could be being attacked for all he knew. I just remember seeing this guy just off, and I remember getting up and crashing through chairs and furniture and stuff, trying to find a damn light switch in this place, freaking out. Found this light switch, flicked it, looked down at the floor, and here's this woman. And I shit myself, man, literally. What had happened was she'd had a heart attack at the kitchen table. Had clearly obvious, because she'd pulled the tablecloth and all the cutlery and the plates and stuff smashed all over the floor, and she'd been there probably 2 or 3 days, and she'd purged. So what I'd slept in on the floor was urine.
Gross.
And she had, rigor mortis had well set in, and she was all contorted, and what had grabbed me around her ankle was her extended arm.
Wow.
And
oh my God.
man, I tell you, that one will stick with me forever, man.
I guess so. I mean, if I would have, the guy that I found, I didn't go any closer than 10 feet away from him. If I would have touched him. And I remember when they came and got him, we were watching, and they kind of peeled him off the ground, and when they did, it's like some of his skin stuck to the carpet.
Yeah.
Half of him was on linoleum of the bathroom, and the other half of him was on the carpet, and he was face down. And the skin
It grafts to it.
of his elbows that was down on the carpet, it was
Yeah.
just, it was still there. And that was my job, was to clean these places and work on these.
Yuck.
So days later, we actually ended up, like, the coroner came and took him out of there and stuff, and my boss was like, if you want to take the day off, that's fine. Go ahead and go home. So I went home. He took the rest of the day off. And I went home and watched Forrest Gump. And I was like, I need to see something.
Something light.
Exactly.
I'll be watching Sesame Street.
It's just something you never forget. Sights and smells.
Yeah, man.
That's a horror story, like.
Yeah,
I
totally.
can imagine a ghost story giving me the kind of reaction and feelings throughout life. Like I remember the thoughts and shit the rest of my life, and I couldn't imagine a spooky experience that ever made me feel like that.
Yeah, reality is so much worse, eh?
Yeah.
But you're right. That's how the body sort of decomposes, and it sort of meshes with fiber and stuff like that. It's like when you're peeling the cloth off a decomposed body. It's pretty nasty.
I ended up cutting that carpet out. I took a carpet knife and we just cut all the carpet out and ran a bunch of bleach through the swamp cooler.
Nasty, man. One last incident I'll share with you, mate, is before we wrap this up tonight. I hope you guys don't mind this Halloween sort of reflection on past events and stuff. Guys, it's just something me and John thought we'd throw together at last minute in sort of an honour and recognition of Halloween. Was another police story, Jonathan, another police story. This one, the 1S codes that I was telling you about, the sudden death, was always the last kind of job as a cop in Auckland that you want to get called to. And the reason for that, other than the obvious, having to deal with the sort of things you deal with, was the extensive paperwork that came with it. You had to wait for the coroner, you had to tag the bodies, you had to do all the paperwork, and the paperwork took 3 or 4 hours. Now, this not such a bad thing to deal with, unless you're coming off the back end of a night shift. You've just done 7 nights in a row. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. You're almost knocked off, and you just, day shift had started turning up to work, and they're all getting ready for their shift, and your unit gets called to a sudden death. So, and you're knackered, you want to go home to bed, but you've been called to a sudden death. And I remember this particular job, we were running a patrol in a place called Ponsonby in central Auckland. I'd transferred to Avondale at that point, which is another central Auckland location. And it was about 10-15 minutes before knockoff, and comms dialed us up and said, the Ponsonby unit, can you attend this sudden death? Family's on site. And it was a location, it was about 10-15 minutes drive from us. So me and I was partnered up with a young lady cop that night, just a little blonde lady. And I thought, okay, if this is, we could probably handle anything that's sort of thrown at us. But so we turn up to this location, and the grieving family's in the lounge room, and their family member, I can't remember what she was to them, but quite a large lady had died in the bed, or been found dead that morning. So I go into the bedroom while my partner's sort of dealing with the family to sort of assess the situation. I'm thinking, she would have been probably about, I can't be accurate, but probably about 140, 150 kilos. She's a big lady. And I'm thinking, there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to sort of move this person down to the coroner, who's sort of going to be attending soon and turning up down, a couple of flights of stairs and down onto the main road. So, my sergeant and the rest of the section are back at station already, wrapping up for the night, starting to get out of the uniforms and get ready for the wind down to knock off. So as you can imagine, they weren't too impressed when they get a radio call from me. Sarge, can you buzz me back? I need to ask for I need a bit of help. I need the section to come and help me out with this one. We need to move a 1S down to the coroner's wagon. And so they were pissed off, mate, and rightly so. It'd been a long particular shift, this 7-day stretch. They turn up, and the family's in the lounge, and they're wondering why all these cops are turning up to the house. So we go in, sort of brief the sergeant on the situation, and it was going to take 4 of us to lift her, and it was sort of one on each arm, one on each leg. And mate, I probably shouldn't cover this in too much detail on this particular vidcast. It just grossed everyone out. But I drew the short straw, man. I took the left leg, and the woman was in her 90s, so she was all, the dignity was kept, and these things happen. She had to be taken out that some way. And, they could have cut the roof off and lifted it out by crane, but this is what we had at our disposal, so you work with what you got. The Sarge sort of, I think he had one of the arms, and the other legs were catered for. I grabbed the left leg, and it's sort of a situation on the count of 3, we pick up and we sort of haul out. And on the count of 3, we did. We picked her up all right, and I must have pulled the leg too hard or something. But I mentioned before the purging process. This particular former person purged as we lifted her up, and it came out like a jet. Do you guys get Marmite in America? Do you know what Marmite is?
I've heard of it.
Vegemite.
Spread it on toast.
Yeah. It's like a yeast extract. It's real thick, dark, like molasses, I guess, in sort of colour and consistency, maybe darker. But this came out like a jet, man. And it tracked your leg and up my arms and all over my blue uniform. I just got caked, like someone just got a mud pie and just gone. And anyway, I wore it. The body just let me have it.
That's the worst thing I've ever heard.
Oh, dude, I instantly dry reaching. I dropped the leg, couldn't help it. Sergeant and the other guys were fucking pissing themselves, laughing and doing what they could do to not, sort of let the family know. I'm on the ground, dry reaching, covered in shit, and just over it, mate. I remember storming out that room, and I remember the looks on the family's faces as I'm exiting the building. They're like, why is he in such a hurry, and where's he going? What is that stuff all over him? I was caked, man. So I was back to the station. Thankfully, I got out of the paperwork on that job. Back to the station for a shower and clean up, and obviously you get a few tests along the way for certain things if you're exposed to certain things. But I remember that as probably one of the most memorable but fucking worst experiences of my life, man.
Had to be. That's the worst thing. I thought you were going to say her leg came off.
Nah, she was only fresh.
There's a thing with cadavers. Their skin could slip off, especially bodies that are exposed to a lot of moisture, like bodies that are in bathtubs or rivers for a while. Yeah,
isn't it something like 12 hours and the body starts breaking down?
Oh yeah, it's pretty quick.
Because we pulled a guy out of the Manukau Harbour at one point, and he had been in there for must have been only about 8 or 9 hours. But he had, if I recall correctly, it was eels or lice or something had eaten away his underside, his face down, floating in a drink when they got pulled out. And he had eels and stuff eaten away at him. It was not. I won't go into detail on that. That was just nasty. But
there's a place here in the United States called I don't know what it's actually. It's part of a university, but people call it the Body Farm. It's in Tennessee.
Well, it's where all the trainee doctors go to do.
Yeah, it's a research facility where they put bodies in all different types of decay. And they put them in cars, and then they'll put the car at the bottom of a river.
Yeah. Okay, so it's for forensic science, pathology, and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly. It's every body on the farm. There's sometimes 400 bodies rotting at one time.
I take my hat off to anyone that sort of ventures into pathology as a profession. That's got to be a fucking terrible job, man.
Some of the bodies are buried in the ground, but there's a tube that goes down into the ground that'll go right into the dead body, so they can from ground level they can go down and do little tests.
The gas has been released as the body breaks down, and
it's disgusting. But it's called the Body Farm. There's actually
pretty disgusting.
There's a book by author Marianne Roach, I think is her name. It's called Stiff, and at each chapter, she kind of looks at different phases of death, different situations of how the living deal with death.
Yeah.
She talks about the funeral industry.
Yep.
And then also the scientific industry, where they take bodies for research, and they'll do tests. How do you know how well a bicycle helmet is going to protect a human skull unless you do tests on that bicycle helmet and a skull? So
Totally.
there's situations where you have people wrapped in almost like a sock material to kind of. Some of the researchers never even see the race or skin color of the test subject, but the pathologist and the scientists later, other people who analyze body injuries, will see them.
Yeah.
But they're like wrapped up in it's almost like a thing more than a person.
Dude, the only way I can sort of look at it now, and like we used to have sort of debriefings on particular horrible situations, a certain element, especially in the police, as black humour comes through, and you have to learn to sort of disassociate yourself with what you've just witnessed, experienced, seen, and been stuck in the crux of, and we do it through black humour. It's the only way to cope with it, man. It's like there's some seriously traumatic stuff you deal with. I guess it's a lot like war in a lot of cases. Soldiers seeing their buddies getting chopped up and blown to pieces, and it's that black humour kicks in as a coping mechanism. But I found,
I don't know if you could have comedy without tragedy.
No. But I tell you, by the time I left the police as a profession, but the police didn't leave me for probably another 3 or 4 years after that. It stayed. These sort of things will stay with you all your life. Both my parents have been involved in the ambulance service as well. Not as professions, but they could have been. They went right up through the qualification systems and everything else. And my mother was a trained nurse, so had always been exposed to this sort of stuff all her professional life as well. So, and now she manages rest homes, so she's dealing with death on the other, the more natural scale of things. But mate, it gives you a real appreciation for just how finite this is. I look at teenagers today, and they do have that tendency to go around feeling bulletproof, up high on testosterone and thinking, the world's their oyster and nothing's going to hurt them. But the world comes crashing down pretty quick if you're not taking the precautions needed, and playing things cool. So mate, I don't know how this sort of originated from our original Halloween conversation, but it's put a bit of an alternative grim spin on it.
We've talked about movies and then death. Have you ever seen you see Faces of Death, right?
The movie? No.
Yeah. No? Oh man, that became a Halloween tradition years ago for us to watch trauma videos. Scenes of death caught on tape, and it was like a rare thing to find a tape that had gruesome images on it. Now YouTube, you could stay up all night long watching terrible things happen online.
Oh yeah, terrible things.
Reality is definitely more horrifying.
Yeah, but
you can go on the internet and find people being beheaded with chainsaws.
Oh, dude, you just can't unsee some stuff, man. Just pays to stay innocent. I keep that with my daughters. It's like, being teenagers, they grow up, they're inquisitive, they have the same morbid fascination. And Kim loves to read murder mystery novels, and she's right into that sort of stuff. CI Channel and all that. It's horrid. It's like, girls, enjoy being a kid, because it's gone real quick. Enjoy your youth. Don't go searching for this shit. Don't go looking for knowledge in these things, because these things you just can't unsee. And once like everything you take in visually or audibly, it stays with you on a particular level. Yeah. And I can only say that now because of experienced and experienced probably far more than I'd ever sort of banked on or hoped to in my life. And it changes you as a person, changes your character, but gives you an appreciation for deeper things. But as a father, man, it's like, no, don't go looking for it. If you're destined to see certain things, it'll come in its own time.
I'm a lost soul then, because for some reason I can't turn away.
Jonathan, we gotta have a talk, buddy. We gotta have a talk. So, man, I've quite enjoyed this little chat, man. It's a bit of a on the fly for a Halloween. You know, obviously Halloween's going to become a bigger thing here in New Zealand. I certainly hope so. It's good for the kids.
Oh, yeah. New Zealanders Halloween it up.
But
Put your costumes on.
Yeah,
Go,
for sure.
Go knock on your neighbor's door. They won't bite. Hey, you know what was crazy when I was a kid in the 80s? There was this big thing that they thought everybody's candy had razor blades and poison in it. You know, so that was another factor why we couldn't go trick or treating.
It's a sad world.
Have a good time. Have a safe Halloween.
Don't eat any lollies.
Do not drink and drive.
I hope people have enjoyed this little informal chat tonight, dude. I love your costume. I would have worn my costume for the whole process, but man, that thing is, I've been terrorizing the kids who've been knocking at the door with it most of the afternoon anyway, much to the delight of everyone in the household. But
no, I committed to the fuzzball. I'm actually one of those South American kids that have that disease where they just grow hair on their whole body. That's what I'm going to be this year. It's a backwards wig. It's a backwards Paul Stanley wig.
Nice. Do you like my chains, man?
Lovely.
Yeah, it's my rape dungeon setup.
Those go under the bed in the bedroom, huh?
That's where they're generally tied to the masts on the bed.
But they double as Halloween decorations.
Oh, they do. They have many uses. Yeah.
50 Shades of Anton.
So, I hope everyone's enjoyed tonight's little talk, such as it's been. We're going to do these fly snaps on a regular occasion, as I've mentioned before. We're just going to cover random shit, just to get together and have a talk. Hope you've all been able to pull something from it. I hope we haven't traumatized anyone. If you have any suggestions, concerns, queries, questions, whatsoever, leave it in the comments and help support us, guys. Like, subscribe, share. Join the Brotherhood. We've got Harold Crossley coming on with us tomorrow for the episode 2 of the Brotherhood of the Fly. We're going to be getting Big John Bear Ross, ex-Marine, operational US Marine, and one of the more well-known and well-respected digital sculptors in this industry. He's going to be coming on with us in a week or so. It sounds like we've got Art Braun, we've got Gary Hunt coming on, we've got Johnny Fraser Allen, we've got a lot of people coming on, guys. So it's going to get interesting. Me and Jonathan will continue these little fly snaps. We'll try and get Mr. Q in when we can, but as you can appreciate, he's a busy man. But other than that, hope you enjoy the stuff that we've put out so far, and stay with us. And we've only just begun.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah, guys, have a great Halloween. Have a great Halloween.